Keir Starmer is in grave danger today of looking like a Prime Minister who has allowed Britain to get weaker in a time of international danger. Week after week, there have been headlines about the hollowed out state of our armed forces and how Britain is not able to fight a major war, if that's what it comes to. So the country has been waiting since the autumn for the government to set out a plan to rebuild the armed forces so the likes of Russia will be deterred. And there were really strong expectations that the defence investment plan would land on Thursday. But instead, we've had reports of rows at the very heart of government, with the Treasury not prepared to hand over the great tranche of cash that's requested. And Kemi Badenoch arrived for Prime Minister's questions, determined not to let Sir Keir off the hook when it comes to the defence of the realm. And she put him on the spot, asking if the defence plan would be published this week. And the PM said it will appear before the next NATO summit. Now, that gathering in Turkey isn't going to take place until July.
The world is getting more dangerous, and the British public want to know this government is doing everything it can to protect our national security. So can the Prime Minister tell the House, will the full defence investment plan finally be published this week?
Prime Minister.
We've already taken a number of measures. We've increased defence spending from 2.3% to 2.6% in 2027. That's spending £270 billion over this Parliament. We've carried out a strategic review of defence, and we're committed to publishing the defence investment plan before the NATO summit, which is in just a few weeks' time.
Kemi.
That sounded like a no, Mr. Speaker. We have wasted 2 years waiting for the defence investment plan. Projects have been put on hold, and Britain is getting weaker with every passing day. It has been reported that the Chief of the Defence Staff told the Prime Minister that the Ministry of Defence needs an extra £28 billion. Will that requirement be met in full?
Mr. Speaker, we'll set out the defence investment plan. It's a 10-year plan, and it's the first line-by-line review of defence budgets in 18 years. She's wrong to say it's been delayed by 2 years, Mr. Speaker. The Defence Strategic Review was published a year ago. We've been working through the details to make sure that we get this right. We are the government that has increased defence spending from 2.3 to 2.6%. I remind the party opposite, when they came into power, defence spending was 2.5%, and they took it down to 2.3%. We've taken it up to 2.6%. The defence investment, by 2027, the defence investment plan will be published before NATO. We've already signed 1,400 major defence contracts. 94% of those, Mr. Speaker, are with British businesses. And as the Defence Secretary said, that includes helicopters made in Yeovil, drones in Swindon, armoured vehicles in Telford. And we've also given our armed forces the biggest pay rise in over 20 years. That's Labour making investment to safeguard our national security.
And so the Tory leader then pummeled him with claims that the Treasury is prepared to give the Ministry of Defence less than half the cash it needs. And then she cranked up the pressure even higher, challenging him to rule out raising taxes to pay for the spending increase. So when he didn't, she said he didn't rule out raising taxes, so tax rises are coming. That's the clip which will be going out. And then she went for a third strike. She asked, why doesn't he just cut benefits? And she supplied her own answer. We all know why he won't cut welfare. It's because he is too weak. Well, she then told MPs that as the sun sets on his premiership, he is scrabbling around for a legacy. But she said his only legacy will be a bloated welfare state and weaker armed forces. Now, this is not the message that Sir Keir wants going out at this moment.
There is still no defence investment plan. He is the Prime Minister now, at least I think he is. Should I be calling Andy Burnham instead to ask these questions? He is the Prime Minister, and the reason that he's dithering is because he doesn't know where the money is coming from. The military is waiting, the bond markets are watching. He has only 3 options: cutting spending, more borrowing, or higher taxes. We know that the Chancellor wants to put up tax to pay for it. Will the Prime Minister rule out raising taxes?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, she asked the House to simply ignore the last 14 years under one. So we may have failed the armed forces, hollowed them out, but please just forget all that and act as if it didn't happen. Well, you can't forget all that, given the damage they did to our armed services. Mr. Speaker, she says forget all that. I remind the House, when they left office, 47 out of 49 major defence contracts were delayed or over budget. That is what we are fixing. And you can't just scrub away and forget. I know they want to forget the last 14 years in power, so do the British public. That's why they're sitting over there. But, Mr. Speaker, we've increased defence spending. We are going to publish the Defence Investment Plan, and that will be done before the NATO summit coming up in just a few weeks' time.
Mr. Speaker, I remember when the last government led Europe when we were fighting the war in Ukraine. When Russia invaded, we were ready. We supplied Ukraine with munitions. We increased defence spending. But I wasn't asking him about our record. I asked him if he would rule out tax rises. He did not rule out raising taxes, so tax rises are coming. He can't borrow more because the markets have no confidence in him. The reason the Prime Minister is in this mess is because he maxed out on spending in his first two budgets. That's why the benefits bill is set to rise to over £200 billion by the end of the decade. He has things the wrong way round, Mr. Speaker. He has a benefits plan until 2031, but no defence investment plan. Why not just cut welfare?
Mr. Speaker, she talks of leading the way on Ukraine, and I did pay tribute and do to what the last government did on Ukraine, and we stood with them. We continue to lead the way because it's the United Kingdom and France that are leading the coalition of the willing that have got the military plans together for security guarantees in Ukraine. Equally in Iran, Mr. Speaker, it is the UK government and the French government that have put together the coalition for the reassurance military plans as soon as the Strait of Hormuz is open. That is what we're doing to lead. But, Mr. Speaker, we are not going to take lectures on defence from the party opposite after what they did to the armed forces, and nor are we going to take lectures on the economy, which they crashed and we've had to pick up.
But there was more pressure to come from Sir Ed Davey. He wasn't on a panel board, but he was about to whack the PM. He said he's worried that there's going to be cuts to fund defence coming from hospitals. So he asked him to rule out cutting the NHS.
I'm sure members on all sides were shocked to read yesterday's reports. The government is considering slashing the hospital programme to fund the shortfall. Surely in 21st century Britain, people can expect both a decent local hospital and armed forces that keep them safe. So will the Prime Minister rule out any cuts to the NHS budget to fund defence?
Mr. Speaker, can I first agree with him about the amazing work of our carers? We will take the necessary measures to defend our country, the first duty of any Prime Minister. We will also take the measures, as we have done, to invest in our public services. And forgive me, I was running a public service when the government that his party were part of was stripping them bare under austerity. So we're really not going to take lectures on austerity from the gentleman opposite.
And so this was an utterly miserable question session for an embattled Prime Minister. He goes into the afternoon looking like he's failed to get his own government to fund Britain's creaking armed forces. The public now have good reason to think that yet more tax hikes could be on the cards. And Mrs. Badenoch, well, she's probably loving this. At one point she said she thought Sir Keir was Prime Minister, but maybe she should ring Andy Burnham. Wow, politicians are experts at kicking you when you're down. Now, right at this moment, Labour and Tories are tied in the polls at 16%, meaning less than a third of voters intend to vote for either party. So both leaders need to convince voters their parties can solve the nation's problems. But Labour MPs who are looking at the Makerfield by-election will have a very different question. Is Andy Burnham the answer to their problems? Well, Sir Keir has sent out the message that he's not going anywhere without a fight. But as he makes the case for why he should stay in the top job, he'll hope that MPs will scrub memories of this Prime Minister's question time from their heads.